The Telegraph said it was an exercise in narcissism, saying Meghan invites people to her pretend house and they tell her how amazing she is. This happens for 8 episodes. And then there's this clip where she harangues one of her so-called friends for getting her name wrong. I don't want to be defined by Meghan Markle, even though she was personally responsible for me losing a job I loved.
The California dream didn't slowly fade away. It came crashing down fast. Inside a quiet estate in Montecito, Prince Harry is reportedly dealing with a reality he never thought he would face. This doesn't look like a calm visit back home or some symbolic appearance. Instead, it feels more like a sudden pullback, with bags being packed and plans shifting almost by the hour as the life he once defended so strongly begins slipping out of his control. And the timing, hard to overlook. Just as Harry's future in California seems more uncertain than ever, Piers Morgan released images that sparked major reactions on both sides of the Atlantic. These weren't simple throwback photos or harmless snapshots. The resurfaced yacht pictures show Meghan Markle moving within elite social circles that later became highly controversial. Circles connected to the same world, once linked to Jeffrey Epstein, and organized by Ghislaine Maxwell. That same environment pushed Prince Andrew out of public life, and now critics say similar connections are raising uncomfortable questions again. Suddenly, the royal institution Harry once criticized is starting to look like the only stable ground left. Morgan later explained that simply raising questions about these connections led to more than 57,000 complaints sent to ITV. Online reactions exploded quickly, and tensions behind the scenes reportedly rose just as fast. Morgan says pressure was placed on him directly to stop discussing the story, not through official channels, but in a more personal way. Instead of shutting the conversation down, that move only pulled more public attention toward it. So what keeps Morgan confident? According to him, it's the documented trail.
It's sort of rehashed old revelations with a new twist. As it turns out, we've apparently been wrong all along. Britain is a nasty, racist hellhole where only magnificent Meghan stood up to all this, and the world's biggest victim.
The photos show Meghan appearing at exclusive global events, including Soho house openings like the Istanbul launch in 2015. Some insiders described her position as a kind of social filler, meaning someone who helps energize elite gatherings before major figures arrive. And that's where more questions started popping up. At the time, Meghan was part of the cast on Suits, a well-known but still moderate cable series. The lifestyle shown in those photos, luxury travel, yachts, and constant international trips, didn't match what people typically expected from that level of television income. People familiar with the situation believed Meghan Markle was earning well, comfortable, and stable, but the numbers still raised eyebrows. Even a strong 6-figure salary from cable television usually doesn't cover non-stop international travel, luxury yachts across the Mediterranean, 5-star hotels throughout Europe, and regular invitations to ultra-exclusive events. The math simply didn't line up for some observers, and that's when quiet questions began forming. How could an actress from a moderately successful series move so easily through spaces usually filled with billionaires, financiers, and global power players? Who was opening those doors? And why did the access seem to continue for years? According to Piers Morgan, nobody jumped to quick conclusions. Instead, people simply paid attention. They remembered small details, noticed patterns, and quietly archived moments without demanding immediate answers. Memory doesn't rush. It waits for context. And when those old yacht photos resurfaced years later, now connected to a royal title and worldwide fame, they suddenly carried a whole new level of attention. Then there's the Ghislaine Maxwell angle. Maxwell is now serving a lengthy federal sentence, and the powerful influence she once held has completely disappeared. Legal analysts often explain that when someone loses status, protection, and future bargaining power, cooperation sometimes becomes the only card left to play.
Well, good evening, London. Welcome to Piers Morgan Uncensored. Next week's coronation of King Charles will be a global spectacle. Tens of millions will be watching as Charles is crowned in a ceremony steeped in 1,000 years of regal history. But judging by the headlines this week, the monarchy's problems lie not in the past, but the future. A shocking new poll says 78% of Britain's young people don't care about the monarchy. Almost 40% of them would even prefer an elected head of state. And actually, who can blame them for having a dim view of the royal family or the monarchy, given that two of our most famous young royals have waged a 3-year war on the institution. They weaponized the culture of validation for victimhood. Maybe it's time the royal family sued Harry for invading their privacy, because the damage that these two are doing is becoming very clear. Protesters chanting "Not my king" tried to disrupt a visit by the king and queen to Liverpool today.
Not my king! 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 Not my king!
But, and it's a really good but this, there's some hope. Look at what these school children did, who were there and had other ideas.
Investigators have also shown interest in overlapping social hubs like Soho House, places where entertainment figures, global finance players, and old-school elite networks quietly crossed paths. These weren't just casual hangouts, they were carefully curated environments designed to feel relaxed, lively, and private whenever influential guests arrived. And according to several accounts, Meghan was often present in those spaces, not standing in the spotlight but positioned just right, helping maintain the social energy that kept powerful guests comfortable and eager to return. That's the point where the discussion moved beyond awkward rumors and into something more serious. During the civil case brought by Virginia Giuffre, the same legal battle that led Prince Andrew to step away from public royal duties, an unexpected detail reportedly appeared behind the scenes. Meghan Markle was briefly mentioned as a possible witness, not a defendant, and that difference is important. Witnesses are not accused of wrongdoing. They are simply people who may have been present, noticed something, or crossed paths with individuals during periods investigators later examined. Court discussions reportedly focused on 3 points. First, Meghan lived in the United States, which made legal jurisdiction simple. Second, she was believed to have social connections to Prince Andrew during a time investigators were reviewing closely. And third, she had moved within wider social circles that overlapped with environments later linked to Jeffrey Epstein during years that became legally significant. In the end, the case settled before any testimony was required. But observers noted that the key detail wasn't the outcome. It was the fact that experienced investigators even considered her relevant enough to possibly question under oath.
The Telegraph said it was an exercise in narcissism, saying Meghan invites people to her pretend house and they tell her how amazing she is. This happens for 8 episodes. And then there's this clip where she harangues one of her so-called friends for getting her name wrong.
I don't think anyone in the world knows that Meghan Markle has eaten Jack in the Box and loves it.
It's so funny, too, that you keep saying Meghan Markle. You know I'm Sussex now. You have kids, and you go, no, I share my name with my children.
Yes.
And that feels so, I didn't know how meaningful it would be to me, but it just means so much to go, this is our family name.
Now, Batya, I know you feel strongly about this. I just have to say, I come from Sussex in England. It's a county on the south coast. It has several million people live in it. I can tell you with some certainty, if you went round and chose 100,000 people from villages and towns in Sussex, have you ever seen Meghan Markle here in the county? You would not find a single person.
That moment quickly disappeared beneath royal wedding coverage, ceremonies, and glowing headlines. Now those overlooked details are popping up again. With Ghislaine Maxwell speaking from prison and Piers Morgan sharing archived photos, attention around the story is rising fast. At the same time, reports suggest life in Montecito has cooled down socially. Invitations appear to have slowed. Once friendly circles feel distant, and some local insiders describe a quiet freeze-out. Add financial pressure, including a stalled partnership with Netflix, and suddenly, several issues are colliding all at once. What once looked like a perfect escape now feels like a chapter closing quickly, loud, messy, and without an easy way out. Entertainment insiders now claim the partnership between Netflix and the Sussexes is essentially finished. According to multiple industry sources, expectations were huge, and the investment was massive. But the results didn't match the hype. Viewer engagement slowed, subscriber impact stayed limited, and executives reportedly ran out of patience fast. Behind closed doors, the situation didn't stop unraveling. The internal problems inside the Archewell Foundation started raising even more questions.
I don't want to be defined by Meghan Markle, even though she was personally responsible for me losing a job I loved. You know, she was the one who wrote to the boss of ITV on the Monday night that led to me leaving the next day. talking about we're both women and we're both mothers. You got to get rid of him. Do people think that's right? Is it right that a person like Meghan Markle from a California mansion should lever a British television broadcaster out of a job he's enjoying, that viewers are enjoying him doing in that way? I don't think so. Is it right that my right to free speech was so impinged that I had to leave a job if I didn't apologize for disbelieving someone who said false things? I don't think so. I thought the whole thing was ridiculous, as did Ofcom, the government regulator, months later, who ruled in my favour. So I thought the whole thing, frankly, was preposterous.
In a surprisingly short period, 11 staff members left the organization, a turnover rate insiders describe as extremely concerning. One of those departures included James Holt, who had even moved his family from the UK to help build the project. But after some time, he quietly stepped away when it became clear the operation was struggling to maintain momentum. In nonprofit and PR circles, exits like that usually aren't random. They often signal internal pressure, leadership confusion, or financial stress, and sources say all three may have been part of the situation. At the same time, the financial reality in Montecito isn't getting any lighter. The $14 million property comes with huge expenses, six-figure property taxes, serious security costs, and a lifestyle that requires consistent income to support. With the Spotify partnership already ending and new business deals slowing down, the financial pressure is becoming harder to overlook. There's also growing discussion about relocating. Reports say places like Texas and even parts of Europe have been explored, mainly for tax benefits and increased privacy. But critics argue that simply moving locations won't quiet the public attention. With Piers Morgan's archived images still circulating and scrutiny rising again, the spotlight hasn't disappeared. That renewed attention has also brought back older debates, especially discussions about Meghan's public narratives. Some comparisons are resurfacing, particularly when people look at the level of transparency Catherine showed during her pregnancies. Where royal tradition once provided clear messaging, critics say shifting details created confusion instead of clarity. As these conversations build on top of each other, the pressure around this chapter seems to keep growing, louder and more intense. As the public conversation grew stronger, one particular topic kept reappearing, not as a claim of wrongdoing, but as something many viewers simply noticed. During Meghan's pregnancy, appearances, online observers often discuss visual differences in how her baby bump appeared. In some public outings, the bump looked very pronounced and carefully supported, with slower movements and protective body language that many expecting mothers easily recognized. But in other photos taken around the same time, people noticed something different. The bump sometimes appeared smaller or positioned differently, and her movements seemed far more flexible. In one appearance, she walked carefully, step by step, hands resting protectively. In another outing from a similar time frame, she was seen walking upstairs quickly, bending with ease, and moving freely, even while wearing high heels. Observers weren't comparing changes month by month, they were reacting to quick shifts that seemed difficult to explain. That contrast alone sparked curiosity, especially among women who had experienced pregnancy themselves. Around the same time, reports appeared claiming that internal scheduling documents were circulating among palace staff. These logs, reportedly used for security planning and daily coordination, supposedly listed medical appointments on days when Meghan was publicly photographed attending events elsewhere in London. The concern wasn't about tight timing, it was about full-day overlaps that didn't seem to match up. No official explanation was ever provided, leaving supporters and critics debating whether the paperwork was outdated, inaccurate, or simply misunderstood. Without clarification, the uncertainty only grew. Another moment soon caught public attention. Meghan had previously shared plans for a private home birth at Frogmore Cottage, a choice many people saw as completely reasonable.
Go, Rita. Iman.
Yeah.
Look at the front pages there, which is when their engagement was announced.
Yeah.
Where's the racism?
Do you remember that was before she actually said that the institution was racist? And that's my point. How institutionalized racism works is the minute you dare say that the institution is racist, everyone piles on.
Shouting.
That's what happens.
But you accept there's no racism in those media pages.
Because that was before she said that the institution was racist.
Actually,
after that moment, that's when everyone decided to pile on.
Actually, what happened is
as a woman.
people began to pile on when she started having $500,000 baby showers in New York and flying back on the Clooney private plane. They started having a pile-on. When they used Elton John's private plane like a taxi rank whilst preaching about carbon footprint. They had another pile-on when they had other huge extravagant events they went to, and then when they're preaching about poverty on their Twitter account. Time and again, they were caught being rankly hypocritical. That was why the media coverage began to turn. Then there was all the stuff with her father. Many people felt that she was unnecessarily cruel to her father. People have since criticized his own behavior. I accept that. But certainly to start with, they ditched him.
But when May 6th, 2019 arrived, the birth instead took place at the Portland Hospital, a location that had never been publicly mentioned before. No detailed explanation was released for the change, and palace communications stayed quiet. That silence caused many people to revisit earlier statements, not because of one single detail, but because unanswered questions often build over time. For Prince Harry, the situation carries a personal layer. He watched closely as Prince Andrew's public role collapsed, not because of rumors alone, but because of sworn testimony, documented evidence, and official records that reshaped public opinion permanently. That experience showed how public scrutiny can reach a point where it becomes impossible to escape, no matter how carefully the narrative was originally presented. This is how major controversies usually reach their final stage, not through headlines or polished public statements, but through records. Depositions, sworn testimony, and official documents create a timeline that doesn't disappear, no matter how carefully public messaging is managed. That's why Prince Andrew's situation became a serious lesson within royal circles. His case demonstrated how legal strategies and silence can delay consequences for years, sometimes even decades, until one key moment changes everything. Once testimony entered the official record, the protective barrier collapsed. That history is part of why comparisons involving Prince Harry sometimes make royal watchers uneasy. Both men moved within elite social circles where influence often mixed with privilege and oversight could be limited. Andrew's turning point arrived when Virginia Giuffre named him under oath, creating a permanent legal record. In that same case, Meghan Markle was reportedly discussed as a potential witness, not accused of anything, but viewed as someone investigators believed might provide helpful context. That detail stands out. It involved the same legal framework, the same investigative scope, and the same team with access to evidence the public has never seen. Harry likely understands one key reality here: institutions matter. The royal system has centuries of experience managing sensitive situations quietly before they ever reach a courtroom. History shows how that system often works. Past associations connected to other royals were briefly acknowledged, addressed internally, and then absorbed by the institution, allowing public duties to continue without long-term damage. But there is a limit to that protection. Those quiet mechanisms usually work only before formal questioning begins. Once testimony is scheduled and official records are created, nothing, not titles, legal teams, or royal protocol, can erase what has been documented. And that's the question hanging over everything right now, not loud or dramatic, but impossible to ignore. What exactly was known, and when was it known?
Epstein's girlfriend. That is a fact. Karina was dating Jeffrey from 2009 to 2019 when Jeffrey, well, who knows what happened, was unalived, popped to a bunker, we just don't know. But they had been on holiday together. There are numerous pictures of them on a yacht holiday. So the fact the press have never mentioned this, and the mainstream media continue to offer some very questionable protection to the facts, this rings my alarm bells massively.
Yeah, and the thing is, what we want to know is why Virginia Giuffre was specifically calling on Meghan to give evidence.
Absolutely, and that statement from the lawyer was so smartly worded. It was vague, and it was vague by design. So that's why I think it was a warning to Meghan. If I sit here with my professional PR hat on, looking at that statement, they go through so many drafts.
Because once public scrutiny reaches that level, there's no rewinding the story, only dealing with whatever comes next. Either outcome places Prince Harry in a very difficult position. If he understood the full scope of Meghan's past and chose to minimize it, that opens the door to serious reputation concerns. And if he didn't, if he trusted the situation completely or received the wrong information, then he may have stepped into something that now threatens the life he tried to build in California, including the fragile ties he still has with his family. From many perspectives, the fairy tale chapter now looks finished. And suddenly, the same institution Harry once criticized, the one he described as rigid and damaging, appears to be the only structure that could offer protection. That realization may help explain the sudden shift in direction, the quieter presence in Montecito, and the growing signs of reconnecting with the royal system he once walked away from. What makes this moment impossible to ignore is how many issues seem to be colliding all at once. Piers Morgan's resurfaced yacht photos, renewed attention around elite social circles once linked to Ghislaine Maxwell, older questions that were never fully answered suddenly returning with sharper focus. Add in the ongoing debates about past inconsistencies, the confusing rollout of birth announcements, and the internal struggles inside the Archewell Foundation, where staff departures reportedly signaled deeper problems behind the scenes. Yet through all of this, one detail stands out strongly: the silence. Meghan Markle has not issued direct clarifications, legal challenges, or even indirect responses to the discussion circulating online. No clear denials, no close allies publicly stepping forward, no visible pushback against claims that continue spreading. For someone previously known to respond quickly to negative press, that quiet approach has caught people's attention. In the court of public opinion, silence rarely feels like strategy. Many interpret it as stepping away from the conversation. Harry's response has also raised eyebrows. Instead of addressing the issues directly, he appears to be moving closer again to the institutional protection he once rejected. For many observers, the pattern feels obvious. When powerful figures stop speaking and begin pulling back, it often signals pressure rather than peace. When resurfaced images, legal history, financial strain, and social distance all collide at the same time, the story doesn't quietly fade away. It erupts. At this point, some observers say there are only two ways to interpret what's unfolding, and neither one is simple. Either Prince Harry knew more about Meghan's past than he ever publicly admitted, or he entered the marriage without full knowledge and is now facing consequences he never expected. There isn't an easy third explanation that softens the situation. What complicates the moment even further is how royal history often plays out. The institution has traditionally focused on protecting the bloodline, and Harry, as the son of King Charles III, still holds a unique position within that structure. Historically, when pressure rises, insiders say the system often moves to protect those born into it, even if others around them end up carrying the weight of the fallout. And that's why the latest developments feel so important. As Piers Morgan continues sharing archived material and public scrutiny keeps growing, the situation no longer feels distant or theoretical. It feels like it's unfolding right now. Legal experts often repeat one key point. Once testimony becomes part of the official record, it doesn't disappear. Statements made under oath stay permanent, searchable, and usable in future proceedings. Changing locations or crossing borders doesn't erase documentation that already exists. With past investigations, resurfaced photographs, and overlapping social circles now being looked at again, including connections once linked to Ghislaine Maxwell, the pressure seems to be building from several directions at the same time, and one image keeps standing out to observers. The prince who once promised to build a completely independent life away from royal structures now appears to be moving back toward the very institution he spent years criticizing, and not calmly, but with urgency. To both critics and supporters, that shift speaks louder than any statement ever could. At this stage, one thing feels clear. The California chapter appears to be closing quickly. The dream that once promised freedom and a fresh start now looks shaken under growing pressure, and Prince Harry seems to be leaning back toward the same system he once rejected, possibly hoping it can help manage whatever comes next. But the real question still remains. As scrutiny grows and legal processes continue, whose names could eventually appear in official records? Can the royal institution truly protect both Harry and Meghan Markle? Or does history suggest someone usually carries the fallout to protect the crown? Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think this relationship can survive everything that's building around it? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure you hit like, share the video with someone following this story, and subscribe so you don't miss the next update. And before you leave, tap the video that's showing on your screen right now for even more celebrity drama and deep dives. I'll see you in the next one.